All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Hi.
Yeah.
So good to have you all. So we are going to get started. I wanted to give everyone a few more minutes to join, but I'm ready to get talking about mental health. This is the final discussion in our virtual college panel discussion series. And I know that we have a lot of great information to share. Our panelists are here to answer your questions. So again, start getting your questions ready. For our attendees, the best way to ask your question is to just put it in the chat. I'll read it out for our panelists and then the answer, okay? So welcome, just a little bit about Knowledge is Key, Inc. We are an educational nonprofit organization with a mission to educate, encourage, and support by providing free academic resources and our annual scholarships. Okay, that's just Knowledge is Key in a nutshell. We are on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so be sure to follow us. If you want to email us just to keep in touch, just even if it's just to say hi, email us. We love to hear from you. Our email is info@knowledgeIsKeyInc.org. We also have a monthly newsletter that we send out, an e-newsletter. So if you want to be a part of that emailing list, feel free to email us and let us know. All right, I am Danielle. I am one of the co-founders of Knowledge is Key, Inc., and I am just very excited to be moderating this discussion today. Okay, before we get started, I would like to give a huge thank you to our sponsors who made our amazing giveaways possible. We have Joni's Gift Baskets, Target, Staples, Butterflies with Voices, and Dormco. Okay, so thank you so much to our sponsors. And thank you to our panelists. I am so excited to have you ladies here. And I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. I think Dr. Jonate is ready. And I'm going to ask you to start, and then Dr. Luckers, if you would follow after that. But please join us. Let us know who you are.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate you and also the work that you're doing with Knowledge is Key. It's amazing what you're doing. So just a little bit of quick little story about me. I'm Jonate Prather, born and raised in East Cleveland, Ohio. It's definitely not a place where you want to go vacation, but I'm grateful for my, you say, humble upbringings. Part of why I believe I was asked to be part of the panel is because of even my journey. I was sexually abused and now an advocate and ally to support persons who have been sexually abused as a child. When I was in high school, I worked 2 jobs and I was president of my class. And because I was working so many jobs while I was in high school, my guidance counselor told me, "You are not smart enough to attend college." And I'm so grateful that I did not listen to her. I then pursued a degree at Ohio State University. As an undergrad, I majored in psychology, African American studies. I studied abroad to South Africa and Zimbabwe. And because of my life experiences, I wanted to help others. I then pursued my master's in social work, a doctorate degree in social work. I was a school social worker, and to know a lot about those non-academic barriers that students bring into the classroom. And now as a college professor and administrator, I absolutely love helping students. And so that's a little bit about my story. And I am a person that has overcome a lot of barriers. And my passion is to help others achieve their degree dreams. So a little bit about me.
Thank you. Excited to have you.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Luckers.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Lynette Luckers, and I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My background, I attended all of the state schools in Pennsylvania. So I graduated from Bloomsburg University with my degree in social work. I originally started that path. I wanted to go into the medical field, but recognized that chemistry was not my best friend, and I could not pass that course to save my life. And time is money. And I ended up, I was already in the Black Cultural Societies. I was a resident advisor. And with that, was already volunteering in the community. So sought out the field of social work and then moved on to getting my master's degree in counseling college student personnel. I've been working in higher ed for about probably 15 years now. And my involvement in undergrad extracurricular activities, I didn't realize you could actually do this for a living. So that started my passion as far as just really wanting to work with college students. And then from there, in the last 2 years, I earned my doctorate degree in 2019 in educational leadership. And I'm a college administrator at Community College of Philadelphia. And then I also am a professor as well. So I'm just happy to be here. I'm just really excited. My passion is to just cultivate and educate and empower students. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm excited, and I apologize. I've been mispronouncing your last name. I will get
It's
it
okay.
right.
Everyone does it. It's okay.
I will get it right. But oh man, I am so excited. And I just really quick before we dive in, I just want to say we did have 2 discussions prior to this one. We had our financial aid and scholarships discussion, and we had our all things college discussion. Those are both on our YouTube as well as our Facebook page. So if you missed it, don't worry. You can watch the recording. It's all there. Watch it, rewatch it, share it. They both have some really valuable information. And now if you're here today, you'll be able to get the information on mental health and wellness. If not, we're also recording this, okay? So I just wanted to put that out there, that the information from our past 2 discussions are available in case you missed it, okay? So as our attendees get their questions ready, I do have some pre-prepared questions as well as some things that came in prior, so we can get started. But again, attendees, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We want to know what your questions are. What questions do you have for our amazing panelists, for our doctors that we have here? Okay, so to get started, Dr. Luckers, this is for you. This is something that we had discussed prior. But I just like to start by identifying the different types of depression that can escalate in college. Okay, because this is a college panel discussion. We know that depression can affect any and everybody, regardless of what stage you are in your life. But what are some of the types of depression that can escalate while individuals are in college?
So one of the main mental health challenges that can occur in college is definitely anxiety. Some people don't realize that anxiety can be a form of mental health issues, but for some students over time, and just even we think about COVID over the past year, people's anxiety level has definitely increased. But students can have anxiety just going into, taking a test. What courses should I take? How will my semester, evolve, on top of just dealing with family issues and family dynamics and structures. And not necessarily, some students may not have that emotional support that they need to navigate a college system. So that's one of the anxiety. And then I also would say there is depression, and there's different types of depression. You have, there's for some, they may have seasonal depression. And so it's only, certain times of the year. I would say for a student, just pay close attention to your body. Like identifying when do you fall off in the semester. Is it like right after daylight savings time in October, and then you have no energy? Your body is adjusting to the time difference, as well as it's no more sun after 4:45 p.m. depending on where you live at. And then also you're waking up in darkness, and that can really impact your mood. But then there's also, you may be dealing with long-term depression, where you're not able to be motivated, you're not able to get out of bed, you're not functional. Our brains don't fully develop until we're 20 up to 25 years old. So for a lot of students, when they go off to college or they start that journey, 18, 19, 20, 21 is when life really starts to hit them, as we call adulting. And with that, students start dealing with a lot of mental health issues, and it starts to occur. And maybe taking an inventory, even for students and even parents, as far as you see some early signs early on, check in with your, son, daughter, niece, nephew, whoever that person is, as part of that village to see how they are doing. Sometimes when students go away to school, they can put on a facade and you may not know how that person is doing, how they're adjusting until the end of the semester, and then they fail out of school. And sometimes those things are contributed to depression. And I think that mental health has definitely increased over the past year, especially our seniors. They did not have, that they had a typical senior year, even their junior year. So they didn't have, some may not have had a junior prom, a senior prom, senior class trip, the full, graduation experience. And that can be cause depression as well. It may be temporarily, or for some, it may be long term. So really, pay attention to that. There's resources out there. If you know that your child, or you know that you struggle with this, go to the college campus, see if they have a counseling service, what services do they provide, how many sessions can you go to, and then also if you have a therapist outside of school as well, being able to have that support. Early prevention, having that intervention piece is so important, and not being embarrassed to say, I need help. I really would encourage students navigating that.
That's actually, were you going to say something, Dr. Jones?
So that was saying that was so good. All of the points that you made were so good. And I really appreciate how you mentioned about the prefrontal cortex. That's what it is. And that's the reasoning ability. And that's not built or established or fully developed until about the age of 25 or 26. And then if you have any type of trauma, it's going to delay that effect. And so a lot of our youth, the things that they're seeing, as you mentioned about the pandemic, we have a lot that's going on with the Black Lives Movement. We're seeing a lot of things that cause anxiety and cause depression. The other thing that I wanted to add was, as she was talking about situational depression and the aspect of grieving, because things are not of what we expected it to be. So our young adults are grieving that they didn't have prom, that they didn't have the type of graduation that they expected because of the pandemic. And then on top of all of that, let's say if it was a traditional college experience without the pandemic, being homesick, lovesick, missing your family, the stress of not knowing how to manage your time or manage your emotions, because those things in our brain chemicals aren't fully developed yet, that can cause situational depression. And as Dr. Luckers, I'm hoping I'm saying your name right. She is absolutely correct to seek those services and resources on campus to address depression. And the feelings is normal to feel sad sometimes, but if it begins to interfere and cause problems in your work or in your school, that's when you know you have to get help. You have to get help.
And just to add, just the stress of trying to figure out how you're going to pay for school can be a financial, emotional stress in itself. That's a whole nother layer.
Very true. That's real.
I mean, there's so many, even like what was said, even outside of the pandemic, before the pandemic, college, there's so many different things that can cause us to get stressed out, cause us to be depressed. And it is so important to say, I need help. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit deeper, because sometimes people are embarrassed, sometimes they don't know where to look or where to go. But I do want to talk about the importance of asking for help. I mean, this might seem like an obvious thing, but why is it so important that our students seek that help, that they're not embarrassed and they're able to speak up and say, I need help, I can't figure this out on my own? Why is that so important?
I mean, if you're bleeding on the outside too much, if you got cut, you are going to ask for help. Give me a Band-Aid, somebody stitch this up. So if you're cut on the inside emotionally, if you are in pain, or if you're feeling out of place, or if you're having anxiety or increased stress, if you're going to ask for a physical cut on the outside, you should also seek for help on the inside. And we should not be embarrassed to ask for help. So that's why it's so important in college is to have the right people around you. Your relationships are so important. It's vital to your success and longevity. and to graduate from college is by the people that are around you. And you want to create those accountability partners and friends where you feel comfortable enough to have these conversations. So talk with your family members, find those campus resources. You're paying a lot of money to go to college. Why not utilize all of campus resources? Because it's not just about what you're going through right now. Going through this life journey of college is helping to build you for your future. So you want to learn what to do, go through this process. And then often people are making long-term decisions such as suicide, drugs, right? Getting involved in negative relationships. But you can begin to counteract instead of looking at these unhealthy solutions, just ask for help. Because if you're going to find help to get a cut, you got to find help on the inside. Yes, your friends, those are professors, those are your family members, as well as thinking campus resources.
Yes, I love that comparison. If you go to seek help for a physical outward cut, you're bleeding, your emotions are just as important. How you deal with what you're dealing with, what you're going through on the inside is just as important. And I really do love that comparison, just to show just how important it is.
Mhm.
And I know Dr. Lucas earlier said that sometimes people don't have that emotional support system. So they might not be coming from a family where they get the support that they need. So now they're off in college and they're adulting and they're building their life. What are some of the steps that students can intentionally take to build that support system?
Mhm.
I would say it's a journey in itself, just building a support system. And when we say support system, we also mean a positive support system, because sometimes we think that people who are there, everyone is not intentional and for us, for our personal well-being. But just, I would say for students, identifying with themselves. Maybe if they are struggling with, I see some things in myself, start journaling, like pay attention, like how many hours a day am I sleeping? Am I eating? How many meals a day am I eating? What time do you wake up? Are you not waking up? To make it to your morning classes? Are you missing classes? And start seeing, well, how long has this been going on, and doing a self inventory of your, where you're at. And also, there's different, even in the counseling centers, they'll have quick, self-assessments, and they'll ask you, have you been sleeping? Even when you go to the doctors, they'll say, have you been losing weight? Have you been gaining weight? Those are sometimes it may nothing may be associated with mental health, but sometimes it is associated with some mental health challenges. In the residence halls, you'll have, if you're staying on campus, let me just say that, because you have the commuter population and you have the residential component. But if you're staying on campus, connect with your resident assistant or your hall director. They tend to offer different workshops, events in the residence halls about suicide prevention. I think April is Suicide Prevention Month. Looking at those things, I know sometimes in our Black and Brown communities, we'll say, we don't believe in that. We don't commit suicide. We don't have eating disorders. We don't have mental health issues. And on the low, we do. And when our loved ones commit suicide, we'll just say they passed away and that's it. No one wants to talk about it. But for a lot of students, when they get to college, those triggers, those things that we stuff down all in our life may start appearing. So being able to maybe talking to a professor that you feel comfortable with, finding a mentor on campus. If you can, sometimes in the counseling departments, they may not have someone that looks like you. But maybe just, looking out those resources and seeing, well, maybe I'll try it just one time, just to see, if there's something deeper going on. It may be temporary. It may be just, I'm just homesick and I just want a good meal and I don't like the cafeteria food. Or it may be something deep rooted where it's like, okay, let's handle it now. The earlier you handle things, the better off you'll be. When you wait till things manifest and you wait 7 years, 10 years, and you're in your 30s and your 40s, and we're trying to unravel what happened in your childhood. and then 20s, 30s, and might be in therapy for a long time. So you can get the handle on that soon and just stepping in and just seeking that support. And it's hard. As Dr. Prather said, asking for help is really difficult, but being able to just stretch yourself, and even on social media, they have different blogs. You can see people's on YouTube. People are coming out and being forthcoming about their own mental health and what that looks like.
So that's so good. And I really value what you were talking about of paying attention and doing a self inventory and knowing that that college journey during this time, even if you're a traditional or non-traditional student, you're learning more about yourself. And one of the worst things sometimes is being present and being mindful and not comparing yourself to other people, because all of our journeys are different. It's so important, as you mentioned, to have a sense of belonging on campus. I love what you talked about with connecting with the resident advisors. A really quick story. My niece is a resident advisor, and I won't share the university, but she contacted me crying because one of the persons on her floor committed suicide. And this happened last year, and she was devastated. And it opened up a conversation between her and I, or even her other students, or, people that was on her floor, that they talked about, that they thought about certain things. There's going to be thoughts racing through your mind all the time. It's like a television. And it's like whatever you choose to focus upon often will expand. And so that's why it's so important to seek those resources and friends and accountability partners on campus. And one of the steps I think is really important to add is having hope and a confident expectation about your future. Because often, as she mentioned, those things in our past, we can't control a lot of what has happened in our past, but you can have hope and a confident expectation in your future. So that's why it's so important to connect with counselors and having, as Dr. Luckers mentioned, having positive, intentional relationships is really critical to how you cope and navigate through your college journey. So important.
Yeah. So many good takeaways. And I love that about having hope. Mindset is so important. I can't even stress that enough, how important just what you tell yourself can change the whole trajectory of how things happen in the future. So that is so important. I love what Dr. Lucas said, the earlier you address it, the better it's going to be for you. So if you sit there and let it fester, it's only going to get worse from there. So as soon as you think that there may be an issue, you think that you're struggling, you don't think, oh, well, maybe it's just this and I'll be fine. Or as early as you can seek help, seek the help. And if it's not something where you have to be diagnosed, then okay, you sought the help, and you might have tips for how you can handle that certain situation if it arises, if it comes up again. So it's never too early to seek help, and the earlier, the better. And just both of you mentioned connecting with resident advisors, and I would say 100%. I was actually a resident advisor on campus, and one of the things that we were required to do is put on programs, put on events. So we can do campus-wide, we can make it just for our floor, make it for the building, whatever, but we had to put on events. And a lot of times I would just think, okay, let me do this. This seems fun. This will bring people out. But if you come to us and you tell us, I'm dealing with this, or I could really use resources on this, that will help guide us in putting together those programs, so that we are putting together programs that are beneficial to you. So I would definitely say, speak to your resident advisor, let them know what you need help with, what you need resources on. And it's also a way to meet people. I actually did an event one time that was campus-wide, and it involved faculty and students. And it's funny, one of the participants was actually the head of the biology department. And at that time I had already finished biology, but I'm like, oh man, I wish I knew her when I was doing biology, because she was just so sweet. She was like, if you need anything, come to me anytime. And if it wasn't for this event, I wouldn't have met her. So it's an opportunity for for you to actually meet people. Again, the head of the biology department, if you need help with biology, who better to go to? So it's a really great opportunity to meet people. So it's important. I don't know how much social activities colleges are having now, but another thing, like we spoke about in our past panel discussion is extracurricular activities.
Yes.
Our panelists, one of our panelists said, you have to step out of that comfort zone. So you might be, you might not be as social of a person, or you might be shy, but when you get to college, it is so important for you to kind of step out of that comfort zone and see what's out there. I was telling them, if they don't have a club or an activity that is for you or that you like, start your own.
Yeah.
It's possible. Start your own. And some of our panelists were sharing that the people that they've met through these extracurricular activities have become more like family. So it's not just we're participating, we've met, okay, we don't really talk anymore. Even years after college, they're still talking, they're still getting together, they consider each other family. Sometimes they're even in each other's weddings. So it's just so important, just taking that initiative to kind of step out of your comfort zone and get to know people, build that support system. It might not come to you. Sometimes you have to step out, but I would definitely say utilize your campus resources, find out what activities are available, meet people, get to know people, and just step outside of your comfort zone. So I know we kind of spoke about activities. Like I said, I don't really know how many social activities are even allowed now. What are some of the challenges of being online for classes? Like, if you guys have spoken to students, what are some of the challenges that they're facing with being online for classes, having to make that transition, and how can they combat those issues?
Well, I'm an online program director. And so I currently teach online and have faculty. And it is a challenge because we have to be creative as faculty members to create a sense of belonging and build community. And so I believe the best way is, as you mentioned, Danielle, to just get out of your comfort zone and connect with people. I deal with a lot of non-traditional students right now, and they have their private Facebook groups. They're hosting events, in unique ways to connect online, study groups online. So it's adapting to this new temporary new norm. And we have to just be creative. And so because I'm not at a traditional campus, our students are utilizing Zoom and are talking with each other in this capacity. So it is not as fun as I would have experienced in the past. And just wear your mask if you're on a traditional campus. And if you can go out, register, go to these different events, still be involved, because it's not just important just to go to college. You have to have these different leadership and opportunities and membership experiences to position you for future job opportunities or networking. And so it's create opportunities even for yourself and for other students of what you want to do. So I know there's still a lot of Greek activities that are happening on campus. Just still do it. But at the same time, protect yourself. You want to protect your health.
So just to add to that, I think a lot of students believe that online courses are easier, but they're not. They're definitely more difficult. You have to be self-disciplined. A lot of it is self-taught, is more time and energy. And so sometimes for professors, they may be providing more homework, quizzes, and students don't realize that because they're maybe not being physically in the classroom that, oh, this will be Dr. Prather's class next semester will be a piece of cake, but that's not necessarily true. And then they'll reach out to me and say, oh, this class is really hard. So accountability is so key for yourself. The group of, your support system, your village, who is able to encourage you to stay on task. It's temporary, but keep in mind that the online learning is definitely increasing. And it's going to continue to grow. But with that, for students, finding a place to still study, to stay consistent, it's so key. And then also, creating that schedule, because you may not be physically on campus. You might be commuting. Your school may not be in person. Still creating that time schedule that you would do if you were physically going on campus and commuting. If you're able to participate, great. As we said, protect yourself. Some schools are being very innovative as far as virtual activities online. Still engaged with that community so you won't feel isolated and feel like you're in a bubble by yourself. If you're able to participate, I strongly encourage that, and seeking out those opportunities. You still want to build your resume at this time, so that if you're thinking about transferring, if you're thinking about, I need more scholarship money, I'm looking for employment opportunities, being able to say, I still participated in things. You can be creative as far as like leadership, whether it's you're actively participating, you're a member. Those things are just really key to stay connected. And that also helps with your mental health, as far as isolation will hinder your mental health, but being able to stay connected with others will help you overall, mentally, physically, and emotionally.
So true.
And the opportunity to build communities online is increasing. And, there's Zoom, obviously, you can set up study sessions on Zoom with people just so you don't have to do it on your own, or if you don't feel comfortable, meeting up in person, you can still schedule that online. Social media is also very powerful. There's so many different groups, so many different organizations. I think one of you mentioned it earlier, there are a lot of people out there right now that are sharing about their struggles, sharing about what they're going through. People are being a lot more open now. So if you just seek out those types of groups, those types of resources, and insert yourself into those communities so that you can, number one, hear about what other people are going through, because you'd probably be surprised how many people are dealing with something very similar to you. So just seeking out those opportunities is going to it might take a little bit of work. Like I said, it might not come to you, but you have to be intentional about that. But they're out there. There's so many resources out there, so many groups. If you just go to Facebook and type in support groups, mental health and wellness, or just put in a variety of keywords, and I guarantee you will find something. So it's just about being intentional, but the opportunity to still build community is so important. So for my next question, I know that there are still campuses that have students dorming, or they may move out into an apartment, but if you have been diagnosed with a mental illness, is it something that you should share with your roommate? And if so, how do you approach that conversation?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think it depends on your relationship that you have with your roommate, and hopefully if you're moving off campus, and you decide, to get your own apartment, hopefully that you're in a good space where you trust that roommate. But sometimes, you may not have that good, strong connection with your roommate. But I do think that it's important as far as maybe having that conversation as far as what are your triggers, what may be your challenges. If you notice that I've been sleeping a lot, I'm not going to class, maybe having that accountability piece and saying, hey, I've noticed you've been in the bed for the past 2 days. I noticed you haven't showered in a few days. Those things sometimes you may not even recognize can impact your mental health. But also, I think even with, having that conversation with your roommate, also having some other people as well. And then, I think it's important when someone knows that they are struggling with mental health issues, that they align themselves with people who can also support them as well in that atmosphere. Because if you may struggle with alcohol or drug use, well, living with someone who struggles with those same things may not be a good support system for you in that season when you're still dealing with those challenges. So I think just having that honest conversation with yourself, like, what do I need right now to get me through in college, is really important.
That was good. That was good. I think it's really important to be mindful of who's around you, because often we're looking for other people to pull us up, and often someone that's of your, let's say, same age may not have the capacity to do that, but the aspect of accountability, as Dr. Luckers mentioned, is really important. And so having some trusted individuals to identify those triggers, as she mentioned, that's what I was thinking too. And because sometimes you have to protect yourself. And in this day of people making haste decisions, it can be problematic, especially from a confidentiality standpoint. So unless that's a very trusted friend, we've been friends for a long time, I don't know if I would feel fully comfortable to do that because they are trying to grow and evolve as well. And unfortunately, I've seen too many negative cases or girl or guy fights over silly things. And so I will look for someone who has definitely emotional maturity to handle something that is precious. Your emotions and your mental wellness is so precious. You want to make sure that is in a safe hand. So be intentional of who you share that with because you don't want to feel labeled, right? And there's so much stigma with a label. And we need to take that pressure and weight off of what does depression mean or bipolar mean. It's an identifier to say, okay, I need to get some help. And so a lot of times people come with so many negative perceptions about a label because of a lack of, just a lack of knowledge. And so you just want to be intentional and careful of who you share that with because you don't want it to be used against you.
Yes, I agree with that as well.
Now, outside of the roommate situation and of course, finding people that you can trust with that information, how important or is transparency important for healing?
At its right time. At its right time. You have to, you have to grow and evolve. And like I mentioned to everyone, and it's at my introduction, I was a survivor of sexual abuse. It took some time to get to that place to say that. And I had to do my own work first to be able to communicate that in a place, disclose that in a place where I'm comfortable to do that. But there's a lot of internal work that has to happen first. And so there's, I used to love this country song by Kenny Rogers. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, know when to walk away and when to run. So sometimes you don't need to share that with everybody. You have to be intentional of when you share that information with people because you need to do the work first. So focus on healing yourself first, working on yourself before sharing everything. We live in such a social media, everybody's talking, and you have to be mindful about when you disclose something because you are evolving into your professional career, into your image, into your reputation. So you want to be careful when it comes to labeling and sharing things. Let's focus in on doing the internal work. But still,
yes. And the only thing I can, add to that is, it's hard to own your truth. And until you're able to deal with your own personal challenges, your trauma, your setbacks, your grief, you can't speak that, publicly, especially when you're still in that season. So I definitely, as Dr. Prather said, is really being mindful of when you disclose it, because disclosing it, if you're not at that place to deal with the attacks, also the the setbacks, the encouragement is going to come with two things. The encouragement and the attacks are going to come when you disclose who what you've been struggling with.
Absolutely. And both of you mentioned triggers, and I kind of want to use that to segue into this next question. And it's something that I discussed with both of you prior. It's not only important for us to think about and take care of our own mental health and wellness, but we have to think about the people that are around us as well. And I think that comes with learning about them, especially if it's someone that you're meeting for the first time on a college campus. You'll get to probably know these things as you get to know them. But I just want to speak about language for a second. I saw a social media post the other day that said something that it just made me really think. It said, stop saying OCD when you mean organized. Stop saying depressed when you mean sad. Stop saying bipolar when you mean you're just moody and things like that. And I just want to talk about how important it is for us to be mindful of the language and the terminology that we're using and how that could potentially trigger someone.
Well, I think language is so important, speaking life into yourself, speaking life into others. So what you say about yourself, eventually you will believe it, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. I think that, when we think of mental health, I think sometimes people automatically go to that a person is crazy. And mental health is not, and that also, I think sometimes people have certain images of what mental health looks like. So if you may believe that if you're not walking around, talking to yourself, then you're not dealing with mental health issues. And mental health is on so many different levels, from eating disorders to depression to body image to anxiety, and so all those different things connect with mental health. But I think just identifying like what your truth is, what you're struggling with, and then with that, recognizing that, it takes baby steps to get to that place. So encouraging yourself. For some people, it may be writing, post-it notes around, whether it's on, you have a journal, whether you have it's on your bathroom mirror, what you say to yourself in the morning, your affirmations really connect with who you are. We may have saw, if you watched the Mary Jane season, when that was couple years ago, Mary Jane, she would write post-its around her house all the time. And so those affirmations are really like what you speak to yourself in the morning, when you wake up, when you get out of bed, what you watch at nighttime before you go to bed. The things that you hear can really impact how we see the world, how we see ourselves, how we think other people see ourselves. And all of that can just be a spiral effect, especially when you have made so much progress in yourself, that things, having certain conversations, you recognize, I may not be able to talk to this person no longer, because when I speak to them, or maybe when I connect with their spirit or who they are, it takes me back to this place, especially if I'm still trying to heal, or I may have healed from that circumstance, but I just can't go backwards at this point in time. And that may be a trigger for me.
That's good. That's good. I really value one of the things we were saying about what we consume. I think it's Bandura, social learning theory. And the things that we're seeing so much now in society, because it's always this information coming to us through social media, reality TV that's not reality. And so when you're talking about language and we look at these things like everything is perfect, or you'll watch a television show and there is a quick response, or they seem like they have it all in control, that's fake. But because of social learning theory, we take these images and we think that our lives are supposed to be like that. And that's just not the case. So as you mentioned that post, and I think I saw that post too. Mm-hmm. If I'm organized, so I suppose that, like, is that OCD? No. If I'm feeling sad, is that depression? No. That's where knowledge is power. Because really, when it comes to the DSM, when we're looking at a true diagnosis, it's impacting your work, your relationships, or school over a period of time. That's the scale of what we're looking at, a particular diagnosis. And so it's normal in life to feel sad. It's normal for your heart to putter and for it to race and to sweat before an exam. That's normal. But we think that because I'm watching this thing on TV, that I don't supposed to have these feelings. It's normal to have these type of feelings. And so do the research of what does it mean to be clinically depressed? What does it mean to be bipolar? What does it mean to have an episode? When I'm looking at my body, do I really have body dysmorphia, or eating disorder? And so that's where that knowledge is power, and language is so critical because we speak life. As Dr. Luckers was mentioning, we are speaking life all of the time to others and to ourselves. And so we have to be mindful of what we're listening to, what we are watching, because what we consume, we often become. So you want to pay attention to these things.
That's such an important takeaway, be mindful of what you consume. And I think that includes what other people say to us. Dr. Jonas, I know you had mentioned, this was pre-college, I believe, for you, when someone told you weren't smart enough to go. I think it was a guidance counselor said you weren't smart enough to go to college. And I actually had a friend who had an encounter in college with a professor who pretty much told her, you're not really going to amount to anything. You're not going to go far. How do you deal with that? And just in general, how do you deal with difficult professors or even just authority figures who feed you these lies, and they are lies, telling you things like you're not going to make it, you're not smart enough? These are people that you're supposed to be able to look up to, you're supposed to be able to go to for reassurance, for help, for guidance, and they're telling you can't. They're telling you can't do this, you're not smart enough. So how do you deal with that, just in general, just those authority figures that you probably very likely will encounter in college,
Right.
and just making sure that you don't take that and digest what they're saying to you? How do you combat that?
Yeah. Even a parent, parents can say some off the wall type of things, especially if they're not happy with the other parent that you have. And so that's where you have to believe, you have to have a dream, and you have to have a confident expectation about your future. I knew that I wanted more than what was in my environment. And I'm not just talking about physical things. I knew on the inside of me, I had an intrinsic motivation, and I intentionally stayed busy in high school as well as in college. I had to stay active because it's what they say, the idle mind is a devil's playground.
Yeah.
And it's enough to deal with your own insecurity. And I will lie to say that I didn't have, I still, struggle with things sometimes, but I had enough within me to know that I am not going to listen to a naysayer, and I'm going to pursue my dream. And often when somebody is saying something negative to you, I look at the opposite. I'm like, oh man, I am somebody. You're trying to defeat me. This is like a challenge. Okay. So there is good in me, right? And so it's not accepting those negative voices that can be internal or external. And for me, it's having a confident expectation of your future. Like everybody has their own imprint, like you have your own fingerprint. We all have a mark that we need to make in the world. And so what is your mark? That's what I want to encourage for our future leaders. What mark are you going to make in the world? We need ethical leaders right now throughout the workplace, ethical entrepreneurs, IT people. So that's going to create and develop things, and forget them. Like, you're going to always have haters. That's just part of life. So you have to know yourself, know what you want, and go after it. And don't accept what they're saying. Be still respectful, because you don't know if you got to cross those people in your future, but know who you are and keep moving forward. That's just part of the journey. You're going to have haters. But when I have a hater, I'm just like, oh, okay, I must got it going on. You're trying to defeat me. I'm going to show you. Now you call me Dr. Prather. Now you want me to come and speak to the people that's within the high school. Oh, now your school closed. You shouldn't speak negatively about somebody, because you just never know how things turn around. That's how I feel about it. You got to keep moving forward. No matter what anybody says, you have your purpose to fulfill. Figure that out. Figure out that purpose. What's your mark, your fingerprint that you're going to make in the world to help somebody else? That's how I was able to get through. I didn't have the internet. I'm telling you my age, right? So I had to build something on the inside of me to keep me moving forward. You can't change people. It's like life is what as my mentor would tell me, life is 90% of, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond. So I got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I love that, having that intrinsic motivation. You have to know that, number one, you do have a purpose. You do have the ability in you to move forward, and just being able to block out the negativity that they're throwing at you, because it's likely going to come.
Right.
So just knowing who you are, knowing your purpose. I love that.
And 9 times out of 10, you're going to help somebody else with
Mhm.
whatever challenge that you have. You're going to help somebody else, hopefully through that, be an asset and not a hindrance to people. So you got to keep moving forward. Mhm.
Just to add to that, with any environment you go into, it's just really important to learn the culture, whether, when you go to college, when you get that new job, um, you're an entrepreneur, you just need to learn the culture, listen and hear is really important. Um, Identifying like how do you deal with adversity is such a strength, and resilience is really key. But with that, you also just want to, in navigating the culture, make sure you have a mentor. And then as you excel in life, you make sure you bring somebody else along the way that helped you. So navigating those waters is very challenging. Sometimes it's going to be smooth, sometimes it's going to be choppy, but you definitely can get to the other side of the river. You just stay focused, and sometimes you may have tunnel vision, you may lose sight, but don't lose sight of the end goal. I always tell students when I meet them, we talk about, well, what's your goal? You want to go to college. And I recognize that college is not for everyone, but I do believe that education is. And when I say education, everybody may not want to go to a 4-year school, or maybe going to a 2-year school and getting their associate's degree is their goal, or maybe they want to go to trade school, but you have to educate yourself. If you want to be an entrepreneur, learning the pathway of what it takes to be that entrepreneur and being the best at that particular craft. Knowing what your skill set is so important. A lot of times as adults, we don't even still know what our skill set is. But if you identify like what is your niche, that will take you a long way, and just build upon that niche day by day. And so I just, encourage students when they come to college, it's not the goal to just attend college. Your goal is to graduate. Because a lot of times you have aunties and uncles that say, oh, I went to college, you went. But there's a difference between I went to college and I graduated from college. And if that journey is not for you, it's okay. But find out what that path is for yourself and just be true to yourself.
Yeah,
Now,
I love that. For sure, for sure. And I love what you said. You can get to the other side. It might be bumpy. It's not going to be smooth all the time, but you're just building your muscles. You're building your strength. I like to look at life situations sometimes like a physical workout. When you go to the gym, if you haven't been to the gym for a long time, after that first workout, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. You're going to be questioning, should I even go back? I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I went for the first time in a while, and I'm like, am I supposed to feel this pain? Is it supposed to feel this way? Should I go back? And my friend reminded me, that's just your body building up the muscles, building up the strength to be able to do it. And I found that if I stopped and then went back, I would experience the same thing again. But it's just going and continuing to go. Take your time. You don't want to overdo it, obviously, but take your time, but keep going. And you're going to see that your muscles are going to be built up. And that workout that you did on the first day where you barely made it through, couple days down the line, weeks down the line, you're doing it like, this is nothing. Give me the next workout. And you're going to see how your muscles build. And I think it's the same thing with life circumstances. You might be going through a difficult circumstance and you may feel so down in the dumps and you're like, I can't get out of this. It's just so dark where I am. But I heard a quote the other day, bloom where you're planted. So when a seed is planted underground. It's dark underground, but we know that seed is going to grow and bloom into something so beautiful. So take what you can in that dark time, in those periods of pain, those periods of going through, learn from it and grow from it. And I love what Dr. Lucas said. You're gonna get to the other side. You just have to not quit. If you quit, then you're done. But if you keep going forward, it might take some time, it might take some work, some energy, but you'll do it. And you're gonna be so much stronger because of it. So thank you so much for that. And it's been an hour, just about an hour already, and I don't want to end. But college, like we said, college is stressful for many different reasons. Pre-COVID, during COVID, even after COVID, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be stressful. So, and it's going to be busy. That's one thing that it's going to be busy, it's going to be a lot. Why is it important to take time, to intentionally take time to stop, take a break, and recoup?
It's really important to focus in on your me time and live a scheduled life. You have to be so intentional with your time. And that's an aspect of self-care. When you intentionally schedule times of relaxation, exercise, as you mentioned, making sure that you're eating healthy, journaling, spending quality time with family and friends, that's so important to do that because it resets you so you can then move forward into your next week. It's so important to schedule yourself so you know what's coming, and living a scheduled life, making sure that you focus in on self-care, having quality friendships, relationships, laughing, intentional laughter, anything that's going to relieve your stress is so critical for your success and longevity. And these are the lessons that you need to learn now as you're evolving, because these lessons and how you respond to it is going to carry with you once you graduate. So learn the lessons now, learn it quickly, and continue to evolve. And as you mentioned, don't stop.
Self-care is definitely key. I would say during this pandemic, this was a time to recharge. The hustle bustle. If we ever get when we get back to normal, those things that we did before, like 10 meetings in a day, trying to drive from one side of the city to the next. It's just unrealistic. And so, when you do that self-care piece, being able to recharge is recharging your body physically, mentally, emotionally. When you run your body down, you're not good to yourself. You're not good for anyone else. And then also with that, taking the time to make yourself a healthy meal, pouring into yourself. You'll see on social media self-care Saturday, self-care Sunday. What is that for you? Is it burning a candle? Is it taking a nap? Is it making yourself something to eat, giving yourself a facial, working out, whatever that is for you? Take that time to do that. Whether it's meditation, a lot of times for us, we just go and we go, and we don't recharge our bodies. We don't refuel. If you eat junk, your body is going to feel sluggish. So, did you eat breakfast today? Okay, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you haven't eaten. So, what does that look like for you? So, at this point, you're going to become fatigued. But it's just self-care, recharging is key, and extending grace to yourself. That's one thing that we don't do. We don't extend grace to ourselves. We extend grace to others. We forgive others, but we don't forgive ourselves. And that is a part of self-care.
I love that. I actually saw something about that just the other day. Extending grace to yourself, the same grace that you would extend to someone else, extend it to yourself as well. So much great information, so many great takeaways. Being intentional about building your support system, building your community and the people around you, seeking help, asking for help, and doing that as early as possible, because the earlier, the better. Stepping outside of your comfort zone, to do things like taking part in different activities, or just seeking out social media or just other digital communities that you can be a part of. Self-care is important, just taking time to refuel, to recharge, because if you burn yourself out, then you're just going to be incapable of doing anything else. So that's so important. We spoke about journaling and how that's important. Having hope, having that mindset that, okay, I can do this. Yes, it's difficult. And I think it's okay to acknowledge when situations are difficult, but having that hope that it will get better. I will make it to the other side. So as we wrap up, any other tips for students to help maintain and take care of their mental health and wellness?
I just say do the work. You just have to do
Uh-huh.
the work and just be committed to it. And, you know, it's a journey. So enjoy the journey. And your journey is not going to be like everyone else. And your journey may be 2 years, it may be 4, it may be 5. But make sure you get to that finish line, whatever, you put forward for yourself.
That's good. That's good. I would want to go back and emphasize having a vision, having a dream, putting up a vision board, having a confident expectation of your future. So knowing that the situation is temporary, how you feel right now is temporary, and expose yourself to new things and have a vision for your future, and know that through that journey, you're going to get there.
I love it. I love it. Well, ladies, thank you so much for all of that information. Where can our attendees find you, ladies? Are you guys on social media? Dr. Jonathan, how about you start?
Yes, I am at Dr. Jonathan. You can reach me there. Also, my website is Coach Dr. J, and I do have a college book that I'm going to sew into the knowledge is key that I want to give. And so, if anybody has any questions about undergrad, master's, PhD, I'm here to support you to achieve your degree dreams.
And you can find me on social media at Become Grow Lead, and you can email me as well. I respond to emails, and if you're looking for, just help and guidance along this journey, you can definitely reach me out. Dr. Prather, I enjoyed your company. I definitely would love to do another panel with you. I love your energy. Like, we just vibed the whole hour. It went by so fast. So thank you. I appreciate this.
I'll hunt you down.
Good vibes today.
Yes, I love the connections. Thank you so much. And of course, if you're watching, you know that you can find Knowledge is Key Inc. on social media at Knowledge is Key Inc. Our email is info@knowledgeiskeyinc.org. Website www.knowledgeiskeyinc. Reach out to us, follow us. We share resources almost daily on our social media on a variety of topics. I know this April is Stress Awareness Month, so we're sharing some resources on that. So follow us, stay tuned. If you have any questions, if you have events or resources that you feel you need, reach out to us. We're all about providing those resources for free and connecting you with amazing people like Dr. Luckers and Dr. Jonathan. And just connecting you, being that bridge to connect you to the resources that you need. And again, I just want to thank our sponsors, Target, Staples, Joni's Gift Baskets, Butterflies of Voices, Dormco, and even Dr. Jonathan for that book that she so kindly will be sending us. Thank you so much. Couldn't do it without you. Stay tuned for this recording. This will be up on our social media tomorrow, on YouTube, as well as our previous 2 panels, like I mentioned earlier. So the information is there. Ladies, thank you again so much. Thank you to our attendees for joining in. I hope that we can do this again, because I know that there is a lot more to cover that we just can't get done in an hour, but I thank you. Enjoy your Saturdays, everyone. Take care.
Okay, bye.
All right, take care.